welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. Today's tutorial is just nice and quick and easy. It's a little basics video. Today we're going to go over how to use these acrylic templates to create ID pockets on anything you're making. So some of you guys might have remembered when I did the Pocket Pal tutorial recently, I added this little fun ID pocket on the back, and because I have a laser now and I could kind of cut my own acrylic templates out, I decided to make myself my own little acrylic template so that I could easily trace and cut out my vinyl and make this fun little window. A lot of you guys requested that we sell these in the shop, so we're gonna do that. And so I wanted to show you how we use these, okay? So this version here is for a vertical ID pocket, which is what we have on this Pocket Pal here. You can see, you can just pull out your little card like that vertically. It's perfect. I would say this is the way to have the most snug fit of an ID pocket because you have a short edge where it can come out. So it's very unlikely that if you're jiggling this around, this is gonna shake out, right? Even if you do this, it's gonna stick to the clear pocket. It's not gonna shake out easily. Another option is a horizontal pocket, and this is where the card's gonna go horizontally down like that. Now we're gonna go over both today. I'm gonna show you how to make it, how to apply it, how to tweak it if it's a little loose. But this is another option here, and they are different. They are not, it's not one is like this, okay? They're a little bit different because of how we do the top. If you're not interested in the acrylic templates, I totally understand. And if you still want the templates though that are printable or SVG, I will also have those on my shop. I'll have a link down below. But I know a lot of us do like acrylic templates, especially if it's something we're gonna be making a lot of, because we can just kind of like, shoop, easily do it. So we're gonna go over how to use these today. If you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, shoutouts, anything at all, leave them down in the comments section. This is a pretty simple, quick video. I don't think there's gonna be timestamps, but if there are, they will be down in the description of this video. You can just click the little arrow over here. It'll expand the description, and the links for the timestamps will be in there. There will also be links for everything I mentioned in this video. So the acrylics, the PDF, the SVG, all of that will be linked down in the description of this video. This is very, very basic. I do have plans for a few more acrylic templates to add to the shop, mainly for patterns that we've come up with here on the channel. If there's anything specifically you'd like to see, you can leave a comment down below or you can send me an email. I'm jessica@oklaRoots.com. I think these are fun acrylics to start with though, so if you guys use these, make sure you let me know, share them on social media. You can tag me, I'm @OklaRoots. You can also use the hashtag OklaRootsTuts, which is my favorite hashtag, and I will see your posts over on social media. All right, guys, let's get started. All right, very simple stuff today. We're gonna walk through these one at a time. So first we're gonna do the vertical pocket, and then we're gonna do the horizontal pocket. As you can see, the basic things you're gonna need: the template, the SVG, whatever, some way to cut this template out. I also have measurements for this exact rectangle without the rounded corners. I'll have those down in the description of this video, so if you don't want to download anything, you don't have to. You can just cut out the rectangle. It's very simple to do. But I have my acrylic template, and then you're going to need a cut of clear vinyl. The measurement for this is down below as well. It just needs to be a little bit bigger than the opening of our ID window, but I do have a suggested measurement down in the description. You're gonna also need a cut of vinyl to actually, cut this out on, so just make sure it's bigger than this. And then whatever item you're working on, your vinyl, fabric, whatever panel you're gonna be putting this on. You can put this on the front of a bag, you can put this on a notebook, you can put this on a wallet. You can add this anywhere. You're just gonna need your cut for your pattern, and then you just stitch this on and then construct your bag as normal. So that's what you're gonna need. You're gonna need those materials for either version you make today. But let's start with the vertical one, and then we'll do the horizontal one. So I'll be using an air erasing marker and a rotary cutter, as well as some scissors. Remember, this is a raw edge project, meaning vinyl, cork, a stronger waterproof canvas. Those are the items that you're gonna be able to use with this project. This is not a project for quilt cotton, because like I said, we do leave the edges raw. So just keep that in mind. For thread, needles, use whatever you're comfortable with. I'm gonna be using a Microtex 8012 needle and just standard Tex 45 weight thread. So the first thing I wanna do is take my piece of vinyl that I'm gonna be using as the border for the ID pocket. I'm gonna lay it upside down. Now this does have a direction. You can see that the top of this template is thicker than the bottom of it. That's because we're actually gonna fold it down. So if you have a directional print vinyl, just think about that before you cut this out. I'm gonna trace it out on the back. If you have a small rotary cutter, so this is a standard 45mm rotary cutter, but you can get the smaller ones as well. A smaller rotary cutter is gonna make it very easy for you to just cut right around the edges of this without having to trace it at all. I'm gonna trace it. I like tracing, but it is very quick and easy. It's kind of the fun thing about acrylic templates is that you don't have to like hold it down and worry about the paper wrinkling or anything. So I have the outside traced. Go ahead and trace the inside too before you get started. So this inside is going to be what we're going to cut out for our clear vinyl. There we go. So I'm going to cut the exterior lines first. There we go. And you might feel more comfortable using an X-Acto knife. Go ahead and do that if so. I'm okay with my scissors, even though I do see a little bit of a weeble wobble over here. Look at that. All right, so there's that. And then for these center lines, what I like to do is grab a rotary cutter, and I don't start at the corner, because a lot of times with rotary cutters, if you start at the corner, you might think the blade is starting right at the corner, but actually it's cutting down below that corner. So I start more in the middle, and very carefully, I'm just cutting a straight line, not even all the way to the corner, just most of the middle. That's it. If you want to use the template, you can for a straight edge. If you want to use a ruler here for a straight edge, you can. So for example, you can get a small ruler and just line it up with that edge that you drew, and then carefully cut along that edge, just making sure, again, you don't go past the corners. So once you do that, you should have something like this. And I like to, this is just again how I like to do it, but now I'm going to take my scissors, and now I'm going to use my scissors to snip to the corners, because I have more control that way. I can make sure I don't go past that angled corner. I'm just going to go right to it and then pop it out like that. So do this for all 4 corners. All right, so you have a little scrap here. You can keep that for later. I did forget to share the other item that I do find pretty important in this is double-sided tape. So on the back here, I am going to apply double-sided tape strips to all 4 edges right along this inner cutout. So I do find that it is best if you do all 4 edges, not just 2 of them or anything. That way you don't have to worry about anything moving around on you. All right, so now I have that. I'm gonna grab my clear vinyl, and if you have a fun print or anything, just make sure your print is face down and you have your direction correct. So this is a directional print. I want it to be going up, which means the top of this is the thicker bit at the top here. So now I'm just going to remove the paper from my double-sided tape, doing this from all 4 edges. And once you have the tape removed, keep it nice and flat, and take your clear vinyl and just make sure it's covering all of that tape. There we go. And just push it down. If anything's getting a little wonky, just peel it up, try to straighten it out. I didn't cut my inner pocket as well as I would have liked, but that's okay. You know what? It's still gonna look really good. So just straighten it out, get it the way you want it. There we go. Now we're gonna go to the sewing machine and we're gonna top stitch around all 4 of these inner edges at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I like to begin and end at the bottom corner down here, either one of these bottom corners, but I like to start at a bottom corner because I'm gonna leave my tails long, and I'll pull the bobbin and top threads to the back and triple knot them and tie them back here. And that way I don't have to worry so much about something hitting them all the time. Okay, so the big thing you want to check here is just flip it over and make sure you caught your clear vinyl. Sometimes things can move around. I don't have a whole lot of problem with sticking, but if you do find that some things are sticking, what you're gonna wanna do is put some Scotch tape on the bottom of your presser foot, or you can use a Teflon presser foot. You could also get tissue paper and put tissue paper underneath your vinyl if you find that it's sticking like that. But as you can see, I left all the tails long. I don't use an automatic thread cutter or anything like that. I just cut them so that I have 4 tails, 2 top threads, 2 bobbin threads. And on the back side here, I'm just gonna pull on those bobbin threads until I see a little loop that is the top thread. Then you can use a needle or a stiletto, something small and sharp, and carefully pull those top threads to the back so that you have all 4 threads on the back side now. And then once I have all 4 threads on the back, I just kind of divvy them up into 2 and 2 and then knot them about 3 times. Nice tight knots really close to the material. Don't let that knot be, a 1/4 inch away from the material. We want it really tight, pressed against the vinyl. Once you have that knotted, trim down those threads so you just have this little bump here, and you can leave it like that, or you can grab a lighter and you can very gently just melt the tails, and that kind of helps seal in the knot so that you don't have to worry about it coming undone. So this is what it looks like on the front, very cute. So for the next step, I actually like to fold down this top edge by 1/4 inch. To make that easier, you might want to grab a ruler and measure 1/2 inch down from the top edge on the back of your vinyl. And just mark a line, and then grab some double-sided tape. Apply the double-sided tape right along that top raw edge of your vinyl, and then remove the paper from that double-sided tape and fold that vinyl edge wrong sides together back to meet that line you drew. So the raw edge of your vinyl is going to meet right up against that drawn line on the back. So now the top edge is not a raw edge, which I like because that is going to get a lot of use. You're going to be pushing your cards in and out of there a lot, pushing your hand in and out of there a lot. So I like this edge to not be raw. If you don't mind it being a raw edge, then you don't need to do this. You could also edge coat that. You could edge coat the sides too before you stitch it on. That would be very nice. So before we stitch this onto our material, I am going to top stitch along this top folded edge at 1/8 inch seam allowance to just hold it in place. I do like to back stitch at the beginning and the end of this, just one stitch back, one stitch forward, that's it. Okay, once you have that done, if you'd like to pull your threads to the back again and knot them, you definitely can. Just make sure if you do that, you knot them right along the edge. I mean, on the back side, but as close to the edges as you can get it, so that way they're not in the way when you're using this card slot. For example, when I'm tying these knots on the back, I want to make sure they are within 1/8 inch from the raw edge on the side over here, because I'll be stitching this down at 1/8 inch seam allowance, and I want to make sure these knots are stitched down in the seam allowance. I don't want these to be something that create a problem over time when I'm using this. All right, like I said, if you wanted to add some edge coat to the sides and the bottom of the card, I mean, that would look so professional, so professional. Definitely go ahead and do that. I'm not going to do it today for the sake of time. So let's move on to the next part. So next part, you're going to have your panel. So whenever you're doing your panel, make sure you know about your seam allowance. Make sure you know if anything's going to be folded anywhere. But once you have your panel set up and you know exactly where you want your card slot pocket, you're just going to place it over it. If you want to add some double-sided tape, you definitely can. So I'll add a little bit of double-sided tape on the sides and the bottom just to make sure this doesn't move around. So I'm just going to remove the paper. And then I'm going to line it up exactly where I want it. Oh, I'm going to have it go over these little flowers here. I don't know what I'm going to do with this panel yet, but I will find a project for it. So I'm going to have it go right over these little flowers. That's cute. Push it down. And now we're going to go top stitch this down at 1/8 inch seam allowance going around the sides, the curves, and the bottom. I like to start, I put my needle right above this top fold here, and I back stitch. I go like 2 stitches forward, 2 stitches back stitch over it, and then go around at 1/8 inch seam allowance all the way to the other side. And then once again over here, I back stitch it. And I leave the tails long. I'm like making sure that this doesn't come out. So I back stitch for security, and I leave the tails long and triple knot on the back for extra security, because I don't want this to come undone when it's being used. Okay, so I've got it nice and secure. That feels good. I'm going to flip it over, and I'm just going to gently pull on the bobbin thread so I can pull the top thread to the back. There we go. Pull the top thread to the back. And then I'm going to do 3 knots. Once again, nice and tight and secure knots. Okay, so once you have it stitched on, I suggest grabbing whatever ID you want to use and just make sure you're good with it. Now, this is a looser fit pocket. With all the information I gave you, it's going to be a bit of a looser fit. It's not really tight in there, which is nice for me because that means I can easily put my finger in there and get it out. If you're like, that is too loose, and we're going to do this on the next pocket, but if you're like, that's just way too loose, I need it tighter, you're going to go around again another 1/8 inch, maybe a little bit less than 1/8 inch. You're going to just try to get this as tight as you want it by doing another row of top stitching. It's still going to look nice. More top stitching is still nice. So we'll do that on the next pocket. So this is the vertical pocket using the template. Now let's work on the horizontal pocket. So you're going to need all of the same stuff for the horizontal pocket. Same cut of material. Just remember this time it's horizontal. So if you have a directional print, go ahead and switch that around. For example, I have a directional print for my vinyl. So when I flip this over and lay this on top, oh, it just barely fits. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to use the rotary cutter this time to help me get there, because with the marker, I'm not going to be able to get as close to the edges I want. There we go, perfect. So I'm just holding this down, going around like that. I can always smooth out the corners if I need to with my scissors, so be careful. And then for the inside, I will use my marker to mark. You could just use an X-Acto knife here too. If you want to use your X-Acto knife and just trace along the inside of the acrylic, you can do that. There we go. And if I had a smaller rotary cutter, I would have been able to go around these curves very easily. All right, and then once again, for the inner part, you're pretty much just trying to cut a nice straight slit so you can get your scissors in there and cut this out. Unless you're using an X-Acto knife or a small rotary cutter and you're really comfortable cutting rectangles like this, then go ahead and do that. You could also use a seam ripper, but I find that a rotary cutter gives just a bit of a cleaner cut here. So I've got that, and then I just put my scissors in there and cut to the corner. All right, there we go. That looks very nice. So now I'm gonna flip this over, and if you, again, edge coating. I know we don't do it a lot here, but edge coat the inside of this. That would also look really good. Not necessary, but it would look good. So now I'm adding the double-sided tape right along the inner edges of my ID pocket. And then I'll remove the paper from the tape on all 4 edges. And then I'm gonna grab my clear vinyl and lay it right side down. So if you have a vinyl that has a print on it, it might have a front and a back. So you're gonna do front side down. Remember, working on the back of our little frame here. And just make sure it's covering all the tape. There we go. Let's flip it over. Oh yeah, that looks so good, doesn't it? I love that. Okay, now let's go top stitch around the inside raw edges at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Again, I like to start at one of the bottom corners just because I feel like it'll help protect the stitching a little bit more. So one thing I wanted to mention is that even if you don't notice any sort of sticking or anything with your vinyl, whenever you do, especially this first step here, you might flip it over and find that there's like some looping, like big loops of your top thread sticking out on the back. That's usually caused because your clear vinyl is sticking a little bit as it's sewing, and so it's pulling it down more. One way I kind of fix that is I increase the tension for my top needle. So for my Bernina, it's just increasing a number. It might be a dial for you, but I make it more tension. I give it a bigger number. And that usually helps. If it's not helping, what you need to do is you need to find a way to not let this stick to your sewing machine. So either a piece of tissue paper on the back that you do sew over and then rip out, or you can put some tissue paper on your bed of your machine and then just cut out a little hole where the feed dogs are and where the needle goes. And that will also help. It's just caused from the clear vinyl kind of sticking as it's going. So once again, I left the tails long. I'm gonna pull the top thread to the back and then do a triple knot. So I'm gonna pull these top threads back here. Now I have 4 pieces of thread, 2 bobbin threads, 2 top threads, and I just double them up and I do 3 knots as tight as I can make them up against the vinyl. Nice and close to the material. And then just trim that down. And if you'd like, you can grab a lighter and very, very gently burn the tails. And if you don't burn the knot off, you can kind of melt the knot so that it stays nice and secure. There we go. So now just like before, I'm gonna fold down this top edge. I'm gonna grab a ruler and measure down 1/2 of an inch from the top edge. And then use any sort of marking tool. And I'm marking on the back of my material. And then I'll use double-sided tape, but if you don't feel like you need to, actually let's not use it. We'll just fold it down to meet that line. So you're folding it down 1/4 of an inch. If you want to fold it down a little bit more, you can fold it down more. If you want to make sure you're covering, you know, the stitching that is on the back here, on the top edge, you can fold it down to make sure you're covering that. Whatever you're comfortable with here. All right, so this time I just folded it down and used clips instead of tape. And now I'm gonna go sew along this top folded edge at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I do backstitch, like 1 backstitch at the beginning and the end for security, and I leave the tails long. Alrighty, got those done. And once again, I'm just gonna pull all the threads to the back, and then I'm going to do 3 knots, nice and tight and close to the back edge of this vinyl. And when I tie these knots, I'm trying to get them as close to the side raw edges as possible. I want to get it within an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So when I top stitch down the sides of this, those knots are in that seam. I don't have to worry about my credit card or ID hitting those knots when I'm using this pocket. Okay, now you're gonna grab your panel and you're gonna place this wherever you want it. And again, when you're using this, make sure you think about the seam allowance. If you have a 1/2 inch seam allowance, don't have this super close to the edge. Make sure you know where the center is. You can fold it, you can measure it. Just make sure you have it exactly where you want it. And I like to use a few scraps of double-sided tape here along the sides and the bottom just to hold this in place. There we go. So now I'll remove the paper from my tape, and I'm just gonna place this exactly where I want it. There we go. That looks cute. And now we're gonna top stitch this down at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance along the sides and the bottom. And I like to start just above the fold over here, and I stitch 2 down, 2 back. So I do back stitch, go around 1/8 of an inch, go to the other edge again. Once I get over the top of that fold, I go back 2 stitches and back over. This just provides extra security, and I also leave the tails long because I do knot them on the back as well, because I really want this to be secure. There we go, that's on there. Now I'm going to pull the top threads to the back nice and gently. If you're pulling on these bobbin threads and there is just no way that top thread is coming back, I mean, no matter what you do, it's not coming back there, it's probably because the bobbin thread and the top thread have already kind of knotted themselves in the material, which is good. That means you don't really need to do that. You can just trim the top thread from the front, trim the top thread on the back, and it should be secure. Okay, so we have it stitched in place. Let's grab our card now and see how it fits. So now I think it fits pretty well. It is deep and it is a little loosey-goosey. This is one, since it has the long edge as an opening, if you're using it on something, it is possible. I mean, it's possible, but it's not probable that the card can come out. So if you're worried about that, let's just go ahead and give this a try. I'm just gonna kind of place this over it. I have plenty of room to stitch it down and make it a little bit tighter. So I'm actually gonna go and do a second row of stitching now. I'm gonna go 1/8 of an inch in from that first row of stitching. So it's pretty much 1/4 of an inch in from the raw edge. And just like I did that first row of top stitching, I'm gonna go right from the top edge over the fold over lip, back stitch, go around the whole thing again, and back stitch. And we're just gonna see how that works. Okay, I think the extra top stitching looks really cool, but let's go ahead and just pull the thread back again and knot it and tie it. All right, let's see how this one fits. Oh yeah, much tighter, but it's great. So make sure you play around with this. I mean, you might have a business card that you're gonna be using this pocket for and it's a little bit bigger, so you want it bigger. You might have, you know, a driver's license or something and you want this to be nice and tight, so you can make it tight by just increasing the seam allowance. I wouldn't suggest just doing a 1/4 inch top stitching. I think that having the edges stitched down right at 1/8 of an inch is good, so I would suggest you doing additional rows of stitching instead of just one row that has a bigger seam allowance, because what happens is the raw edges can start rolling up, they can get snagged on things, they can rip, it can be a mess. But I think there's a lot you can do with this and a lot of fun you can have playing around with this. So I really hope that this is helpful to adding little ID pockets to any project you're making. Okay, so what do you think? I know these aren't finished projects, but here we go. Here are our 2 card slot pockets, one with a horizontal direction, one with a vertical direction. I love both of them. So I could see obviously using the vertical one on like a wallet or the Pocket Pal. Honestly, I think this would be really cute on the inside flap of our notebook holder. So you know we have the notebook holder video. Hold on, let me go get it. Okay, so one way I plan to use this personally, this is our notebook holder video. This is a free pattern, it's on the channel. When we open it up, we have these nice little flaps inside. So I would take the horizontal pocket and I would apply that right here to the flap inside, and I would keep my business cards in there. So that way if I'm out and about and I have like my notebook where I write down all my ideas and stuff like that and projects I'm working on, I can have my business card right here. If I'm talking to someone, I can pull it out, easy peasy. I love this. You know what else this would be good for? Snack bags. So you guys know, again, that's another free tutorial we have here on the channel, but we have the snack bag video. You could put this on your snack bags and kids could put their like lunch cards in there or anything. You know, you could, I don't know, there's just so many things you could do. You could put this on the inside of a pouch so that they can put, I don't know. There's a lot. So whatever you use this for, let me know. If you grab the acrylic templates, definitely tag me in whatever you're using them for. Like I said, I'll have the SVG and the printable file as well in my shop. So I hope you love adding little ID pockets on everything. I know I'm going to. I mean, seriously, everything's getting a little ID pocket now. Like I said, make sure you tag me if these inspire you to add ID pockets or if you use these templates specifically. I hope you're having a great day. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye.